feels like deja vu, doesn't it? How many times have we done this over the years?
Oh gosh, I think I've done three.
Quite
Three
a
talks.
few. Quite a few. By the way, if you've got any questions for Matt during this, again, please do let us know through Slido again. We put that up there on the screen. So, first of all, what is a route setter and what is it exactly that you're doing now? Because you were telling me a little bit beforehand, and I think it's really fascinating when people think about climbing and people with limb differences being able to climb.
Cool, yeah, so a route setter is, if anyone's ever been to a commercial climb wall before, or any climb wall, they've got all these colours on the wall, all these different holds, pinks, reds, all the different colour schemes, and someone has to put those holds up there. And when you're trying to do that, you're trying to create like something exciting, a movement pattern, or something that just creates an experience for the climber, and that's what I do. That's my job. I take the holds down, I put them back up, and I try and make it as innovative and interesting as I possibly can for the biggest group of people that I can.
But the other thing you're involved in, you were saying earlier on, is the fact that you're involved with being able to set a route specifically for people with limb differences. But then you said there's people who maybe have eyesight or they might have other differences, and you have to try and work out what's appropriate for them and what's not.
Yeah, so recently I've started doing a little bit of work for the para team and for like para setting in general, which is a completely sort of a different to what I normally do. Normally I'm working in a commercial setting, creating routes just for the general public, where disability doesn't really factor into it, 'cause it's quite hard to account for disability when just setting commercial routes. As much as I try to make everything that I do something that I can climb, and therefore hopefully something that someone with one arm or people with disabilities can do. But yeah, recently I've done a bit for the para team where I've been setting routes that try to accommodate more for that, and specifically when I'm setting for, so I'm in AU2 category, which is upper arm disability, basically. That's the category I was in when I was competing, and I was setting some routes for that category. And when I was doing that, I was trying to push it outside the box, because at the moment, all the setters that set for the paras aren't disabled themselves. So I got the chance to come and set for the para team, and that was great. And I wanted to see if I could push the box a little bit and prove some of the setters that actually people with one arm can do an awful lot more on the climb wall than they necessarily think they can. And that's something I'm looking to hopefully continue to develop into the national competition scene as I continue.
So we've got a few questions coming in, so we're probably going to be darting all over the place here with the questions, so we'll just go with it. But the first one is, what does Reach mean to you? I mean, you are a Reach child. When did you first come to Reach?
I think my parents found it as soon as I was born, basically, so 2001 was when they first joined Reach, and I was a little baby, and we used to come to all the branch events, and my father, Matthew Phillips, was obviously massively involved in the trustees and all of that sort of stuff. But I mean, Reach has been a pretty big, especially when I was small. It was a really big part. All of the sort of the fun days we went to. I've been to Raw. I think I went once, which I wish I could have gone on a few more times. But I kind of got busy with doing all of the sports that I've been involved in. But yeah, like as a youngster, it was really great to have that support network. It's great for my parents to have that support network as well. And I'm glad they found it very early on. It's like as soon as I was born, rather than sort of some people who spend a lot of time sort of without that support. So I think that's what it means to me. And now sort of coming back to doing these talks here, and like I've done some climbing workshops and stuff for Reach and for the branches. It's really nice to be able to give back to Reach in that sense. Now that I can be hopefully an inspiration to other people.
So looking at climbing, it was really interesting talking to Owain earlier on about which instrument, whether to even go for music or so on. How did you get into the whole thing of climbing in the first place, and what other options were you looking at the time, but you then decided to focus on climbing?
Cool, yeah, so I mean, I've been lucky in the fact that I've done a large range of sports. There's the types of sport I've done have never been limited by my arm in any sense. I've done fencing, I did horse riding, I do skiing, like all the normal ones. The big one I did was swimming for 6 years or so. I was a competitive swimmer. So I've been lucky that I've always just been involved in sport, which is great. But climbing, I found I was getting bored of swimming. It's a very boring sport to train. And climbing.
Sorry to all swimmers out there.
Yeah, sorry. It's true. They'll know. Yeah, but I was looking for something new. And as you said, I found a competition in London. It was the national round. This was quite well back. There's been a massive amount of growth in the para scene recently, but back then there was one other person with one arm who was on that scene. And I went to this competition in London, and I came second to him, which was obviously really good because I couldn't even tie my own nos or anything at that point. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to climb up a wall, which I just found really, really fun. And then from there, I found my coach. I was really lucky to find a coach that really believed in me, who was really talented and skilled, and he's been a massive part of my journey as a climber and developing my confidence as a person in general in in life and all of that, which is great. But yeah, I found that, and I'd never really looked back after that. I quit swimming not long after that.
So how are you doing with because as we all get older, and I appreciate you're still very young, but we're actually tiny. We have no fear whatsoever. But as we get older, you become a little bit more risk averse. Has that affected you yet, or are you still as mad as ever, climbing whatever you can?
I think it probably has, actually. When I was younger, I definitely used to throw myself around a little bit more than I used to, but I feel like back then I was lucky to have quite a strong base of being a swimmer, so physically I was quite strong, and I like to throw myself around, jump, and I still do, but I've also liked to think I've become a little bit more of a skilled climber in the sense I can climb a little bit more technically and strong on that. But yeah, I definitely don't jump as much as I used to, but I still enjoy introducing people to the idea of jumping and swinging around and all of that sort of crazy stuff in climbing, because it's the best way to climb. It's just monkeying around.
And what about other sports? Now that you've reached the top of your current sport, you're still involved somewhat, but is there something else you think, oh, actually, I might focus a bit more on that now?
I think, yeah, it's not really getting too far off topic, but I've been trying to develop my mountaineering, things like that, hoping to take it to the big mountains, skiing, that sort of thing, just getting out. Because the reason I love climbing and so much, apart from obviously just having fun on the wall, is the adventure and the community of it. I've travelled all over the world because of climbing. I've climbed outside in some of the most incredible places. And I mean, that's what it really means to me, the exploration of it. And so I'm hoping to do that more, get out in the real mountains and live a good adventure.
And what about adaptive equipment now compared to before? I can imagine when you first started there was very little. Have you been instrumental, or has it just naturally come along anyway that there's more equipment available?
I think the equipment itself hasn't developed so much in terms towards adaptation. I think it was already quite adaptive. And I think that the more people we've got to get involved into it, the more people have become open to the idea of using that equipment in an adaptive way. So when you're belaying, which is when you're looking after the person who's climbing by using the ropes, this is sort of the biggest thing that a lot of people with one arm, I hear, have issues with when it comes to it, is because obviously it's quite an important job trying to keep someone alive. But the equipment we have some devices that lock and assist in braking when you're doing that, and then there's some that don't. So that sort of assisted braking equipment is really useful for people with one arm when they're climbing and keeping people safe. And I think that I've worked a lot, and I know that other people have as well, to sort of develop the techniques to use that equipment to let people with one arm belay when they haven't before been able to belay. And it's one of the sort of common things you hear is people, when they're trying to get into it, like climbing, it's not really too different when you're climbing with one arm to climbing with two arms. Like, you're just pulling on the holds, getting up the wall. But then that sort of technical safety side is where a lot of people can find themselves rather limited, which I think is quite unfortunate. So using the equipment that's already there, we've been able to get more people into it and make sure that there's no barriers in that sense to it.
Well, actually, talking of barriers, that leads me very neatly to the final question, really, which every parent here wants to know. We heard it being asked of Bryony and other people before her. In terms of your advice to a parent who's got a child who may be interested in this, maybe not interested, but actually you would like to encourage them to take up sport or take up climbing or whatever it be, what would you say to parents here today?
I think I'd have to say the biggest thing is don't let anyone ever tell your child that they can't do any type of sport. I've been very fortunate in the sense that my parents were very much about pushing as much sport on me as I possibly could, and I don't really have memories of people telling me that I can't do things, and I feel like that's been really beneficial to me, but obviously that doesn't happen to everyone. But the key thing is, as parents, to make sure that your child knows that no matter what they can do whatever they want to do. That's
and we've certainly seen that here with Reach, haven't we? Sure. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Congratulations on everything you've achieved, and thank you on behalf of everybody for being such an amazing inspiration as well. Matt Phillips, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Yeah. Matt Phillips, brilliant.